It's time for you to return home, at the suggestion of one of my old classmates. We got together with several old high school pals today. I had made reservations at a fancy restaurant for a private room. We were all having a friendly conversation when one of my classmates abruptly urged me to go. Just so you know, you high school dropout, you don't belong here. We had no choice but to invite you. All you are is an extra. You're done here as long as you make the reservation. Oh, and before you depart, make sure you pay your portion. He gestured dismissively with his hand, and I felt angry. He used to make fun of me like this when I was in high school, but I was still a child then. Now that we are both adults, I can tell that he hasn't changed much since high school. Are you really sure you want me to go? I was careful to stress the really. He simply went past me without showing any concern. Yes, dude, I'm urging you to go out. You're incredibly slow. Okay, I made the decision to quit midway through, just as he had stated. I didn't care what occurred next. At this moment, I hurried out of there. He was crying and apologizing on the other end of the phone when I received it a few minutes later. Kevin is my name. My siblings and I grew up eating delectable ramen every day because my parents own a ramen cafe. It's a long-standing store with many loyal customers that dates back to my grandfather's day. We also had a lot of young clients because it is featured on blogs and social media. I adore my family and the store, not because I'm the oldest son, but because I truly want to keep this place together. I've always wanted to take over the ramen store someday. I intended to study business management in college and work as an apprentice for my father. Because there was a lot of competition, I thought of myself as an adult. Yet I quickly found myself in charge of the store when my father's severe sickness worsened, and he died shortly after I started high school. He promised me before he passed away, "I won't make you take over the store. You ought to pursue your passions." "Then I'll do what I love," I said cheerfully, trying not to cry so as not to disturb him. His voice had become so feeble. "Dad, I adore your ramen shop. Permit me to work at Mitchell Ramen, please." "All right, I'm counting on you, third generation." I became the third generation owner as a result. I quit high school and started working at the shop right away. Since I couldn't leave it to my mother alone, and my younger brothers were still in middle school, I left them to study business management, since I didn't have the luxury of doing so myself. I was aware that I needed to earn enough money to sustain them as well. I kept going through the journal my father left behind, which told me the history of his experimental recipes and how to prepare our ramen. I took over our ramen shop under my mother's tutelage. Our regular clients began to visit us more often, simply to see how we were doing. They brought us presents and told us happy tales. It was evidence of my parents' generosity. I came to understand once more how essential this store was to our customers as well as to our family. Customers who genuinely cared about the store included some of my close friends from elementary and middle school, as well as old classmates who came to see how I was doing after hearing about my dropping out of high school. In addition to bringing gifts, they also assisted in promoting our store through word of mouth. However, my old classmate Emma was the one who was most worried about our family. Up until just before I left school, she would sit next to me in class, and we would frequently chat. She seemed to have a great deal of sympathy for me after my father died, and I began working at the shop. She apparently realized how difficult it was because her father had also died when she was a child. She was popular among both guys and girls because of her friendly demeanor and kind nature. She was kind to everyone, and that kindness extended to me as well. After I started working at the shop, she would occasionally drop by to check on me and even help take care of my younger brothers. That continued even after she became a college student. She went to a nearby university, so she often stopped by after her classes or part-time job, sometimes bringing friends along. She became well acquainted with the other customers and, at our ramen shop, she was almost like a local idol. That day, Emma came by to have some ramen. She brought along a guy. "Hey, Kevin, it's been a while." I looked closely at his face and realized he was also a former classmate, but I couldn't recall his name. We hadn't interacted much back in school. When I told James about how much I liked your ramen shop, he said he wanted to come too. Emma explained, and it jogged my memory. Haha, James. I remembered he used to have flashy hair in high school, but now, as a college student, he had a more clean-cut look. Since we were old classmates, my mom suggested we sit at the counter in the back to give us some space. I took their orders and started chopping scallions while chatting with them. "So, are you two from the same university?" "No, I moved to the neighboring prefecture." He mentioned a university so well known that even I had heard of it. It had a high academic reputation, and he was studying science there. "Wow, James, you must be really smart." I was impressed, and he smirked, crossing his arms. "Well, I want to work for a chemical company in the future. It's really unfortunate for you, though, having to drop out of high school and not being able to go to college." "I'm doing fine in my own way," I replied. "Really? Didn't you want to go to college too? I mean, working in a ramen shop just because of your family." "What I mean is, it's a ramen shop, right? Ramen shops don't make much money. They're dirty, and you have to work long hours for low pay, covered in grease. I wouldn't want to do that." "Hey, James!" Before Emma could stop him, his words kept cutting into me. Sure, I regretted not being able to go to college, but this was the path I chose. I felt like he was insulting not just my family and our profession, but me as well. "That's not true, James. Ramen shops are wonderful places. You like ramen too, don't you?" Emma defended me with a stern expression, but he wasn't bothered at all and continued without a hint of remorse. "I do like ramen, but working in a ramen shop is a full-time job. I don't know, it's a ramen shop after all. It could go out of business at any time." As we were talking, the ramen was ready. I placed the bowls on the counter, interrupting their conversation. "Here you go, thanks for waiting." Sure, to someone like him who went to a prestigious university, I might seem pitiful for taking over the family business. I don't deserve to be looked down on, but it's not easy to change someone's mind. It's frustrating, but I've made up my mind to cherish this shop. If he thinks it's unstable, I'll just have to make it so successful that no one could ever doubt it. I decided to channel this frustration into making our shop the best ramen place in town. I started by developing new menu items while preserving the original flavors and researching what sets us apart from other shops. I even checked out other places my friends recommended. Before long, I began consulting with real estate agents to expand the shop, making sure we wouldn't keep customers waiting, and researching ways to renovate the shop on my own to cut costs. After a few years of this, I got a call from a publishing company. According to the magazine's food writer, their survey results showed that Mitchell Ramen was the most popular shop in the area. They wanted to feature us in an article. Both my mom and I gladly accepted. Now about 10 years have passed, and I'm in my 30s. Thankfully, Mitchell Ramen is still thriving. I was at a high-end restaurant in the city on business. As I was leaving the restaurant, I saw a familiar face. This time, I didn't forget his name, James. "Oh, Kevin." James looked back and forth between me and the restaurant entrance with a puzzled expression. "What are you doing here?" Oh, just had some business to take care of. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, a guy like you who runs a ramen shop wouldn't usually be able to afford a place like this. This is way out of your league. He laughed heartily as if something was amusing. I hadn't forgotten how he looked down on me in the past, but it's childish to hold on to old grudges. Bringing it up wouldn't do any good now. So you know this place? Of course. The CEO of my company, Keller, is a regular here, so I was surprised to see you coming out of this place. Yeah, I heard you're working at a good company. Yeah, that's right. Hey, since we bumped into each other, I'm busy now, but how about we grab a drink sometime? Or better yet, why not have a reunion here? A part of me wanted to see old classmates I hadn't met in years, but I'm sure there are faces I've completely forgotten by now. It could be awkward, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Plus, seeing James again might mean having to put up with more of his snide remarks. I'm not really. You know, I've forgotten a lot of faces. James, unaware of my thoughts, lowered his voice. Actually, Emma is back in town. The mention of her name made my heart skip a beat. She had moved to a place about an hour away by bullet train for her job. Even so, she kept in touch frequently and would visit my shop whenever she came back home. She did mention she was coming back yesterday. You probably guessed, but I've got my eyes on her. James's confession wasn't surprising. When we reconnected during their college years, I had a feeling this was the case. It was a bit surprising, though, that he was still holding on to those feelings after all this time. So I was thinking the reunion would be a good excuse to see her more often. You get what I mean. Help me out, will you? Well, if that's the case, honestly, I wasn't thrilled about the idea of Emma and James getting closer, given the less than stellar impression I had of him. But ultimately, it's up to them to decide how things turn out. Still, I did want to see Emma too. So, after some hesitation, I agreed. Officially, James and I were the hosts of this informal class reunion, but I didn't have most of my old classmates' contact information. So he took care of gathering the attendees, while I handled the restaurant reservation. It wasn't hard since we decided to have it at the same place where we had met before. I even went ahead and reserved a large private room. On the day of the reunion, James took the lead, giving a toast at the center of a table filled with familiar faces and some I barely remembered. Getting 12 people together in just a week was pretty impressive, James. How'd you manage to reserve this place? This place is expensive and always booked up. I can't believe we got in for just $100 per person. That's amazing. Well, it's a place my company regularly uses. I overheard bits of their conversation. I was the one who made the reservation, but James had handled most of the planning and scheduling. It wasn't worth making a fuss over, so I decided to just enjoy catching up with old friends, sharing stories about what we've been up to, and reminiscing about the past. By the way, Emma's really become even more beautiful, hasn't she? Someone's comment made me glance over at Emma. In the short time since I last saw her, she had grown even more stunning. Ever since her college days, she had transitioned from being cute to beautiful, while still retaining the charm of her younger self. She was becoming a refined woman. She's not wearing a ring, so I guess she's still single. Indeed, there was no ring on her left ring finger. James had mentioned that he was interested in her, so she was likely still unmarried. Each time I saw her, I couldn't help but worry that she might announce her engagement, but it seemed I still had time. However, James had been glued to Emma all night. Just as he had declared to me, James stayed by her side the entire evening. Maybe it was the alcohol loosening his tongue, but I could hear his voice even from where I was sitting. Most of it was him boasting about his work. He kept going on and on about landing a job at a prestigious company and his accomplishments there. Sure, it's not wrong to use your abilities and wealth to impress someone, but Emma's smile was more of a forced one. I couldn't tell if she was just used to hearing this kind of talk or if she didn't care for it. Still, she nodded along politely, which only encouraged James to keep talking, leading to an endless loop. After a while, James left the room, probably to use the restroom. Emma quickly got up and, without a word, sat down beside me. "Emma," I said, surprised. "Hey, Kevin. It's been half a month, right? How's everyone doing?" "Oh, yeah, Mom and my brothers are doing well. They said they'd love to see you again." "Oh, by the way, Ryan just landed a job." Ryan is my youngest brother. When he was little, Emma would sometimes help him with his studies. "Really? That's great. We should celebrate. How about I come by the shop the day after tomorrow?" "Sure, everyone will be happy to see you." "Great. I've really missed your family's ramen." Emma said, her smile as lovely as ever, unlike the strained one from earlier. I hoped I wasn't reading too much into it. Just then James returned, noticing Emma was gone, and started looking around. "James is back. Don't you want to go sit with him?" I asked out of courtesy, but she shook her head. "Yeah, but it's a reunion, so staying in one spot the whole time would be odd, right? I wanted to talk to Megan and Sophie too, but James wouldn't let me go." At that moment, I made eye contact with her friends, the ones she had just mentioned. They waved and Emma waved back. "Well, I'm going to go over there and chat with them, all right." As Emma left, my friends surrounded me with surprised looks. "Wow, you're close with Emma. Are you two, like, a thing?" "No, it's nothing like that. She just comes to the shop a lot for ramen, so we've kept in touch," I replied while secretly harboring feelings for her. There was no need to go into detail. After some more casual conversation, I felt the need to use the restroom, so I excused myself and stepped out. On my way back down the hallway, a voice called out to me in an annoying tone. It was James. "Kevin, what the hell are you playing at?" His face was slightly flushed, and he reeked of alcohol. It seemed he had been drinking quite a bit. From the way he was acting, it was clear this was about Emma. "I told you I'm interested in Emma, didn't I? So why the hell were you talking to her?" He was drunk, so I tried to respond in a way that wouldn't escalate things. "You stepped away, so she probably just wanted someone to talk to. And since she knew me, she came over. Now, she's talking to her girlfriends." "What? You two looked way too friendly for just that." Apparently, it had looked that way to him too. His eyes were unfocused, and he grabbed me by the collar, glaring at me with a look that could kill. "You were always like this. Dropping out, being poor, running some ramen shop, and yet Emma is so kind that she bothers with someone like you. Don't you think you're getting a bit ahead of yourself? She's only being nice to you out of pity. You get that, right? There's no way someone like you, a high school dropout running a ramen shop, could ever be a match for Emma. Someone like her deserves a guy with a bright future, like me, working at a proper company." "There's no need to go that far," I said, not expecting to still be looked down upon because of my family situation. "Let me be clear, you don't belong here or with Emma. But I figured if you were around, it'd make it easier for her to come, so I invited you out of pity. You're just an extra, so know your place. She deserves someone like me. If you can't understand that, just leave. Your job here is done." He made a dismissive gesture with his hand, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. All right, I understand that you don't think highly of me, but are you really sure I should go? I made sure to emphasize really. James didn't even seem to care, brushing past me. Yeah, I'm telling you to leave. Seriously, how dense are you? All right, I said, returning to the main room and gathering my things. Hey, Kevin, are you leaving already? One of my friends asked, noticing my preparations. I nodded. Yeah, something came up. Got it. You're always busy. Let's hang out again sometime. Sure. By the way, could you give this $100 to James for me? I handed a bill to my friend and left the room. At the reception area, just as I was about to inform them that I was leaving early, I saw Emma standing there. Kevin, are you heading out? Yeah, I've got something to take care of. I see. Then I'll leave too. What? I said, surprised. I looked at her and saw that she was also fully prepared to leave. Why? You should stay and enjoy the time with everyone. I've already made plans to have dinner with the people I really want to see. Besides, if I stay until the end, James might try to follow me home. Emma sighed as she slipped into her beige pumps, looking a bit troubled. I overheard your conversation earlier. James was really awful to you. Yeah, not exactly my finest moment, but you weren't the one who looked bad. James did. Listening to him made me realize I wouldn't want to be around someone like that. Honestly, I've already turned him down twice. Wait, really? That was news to me. He had made 2 attempts. That took some guts. James hasn't changed at all since the old days. He still flaunts his achievements, looks down on anyone he thinks is beneath him, and can't stop bragging. It's exhausting just listening to him. Ignoring him isn't easy either. That sounds tough, I said. Despite everything, she had still tried to be kind enough to listen to him, making him think he might still have a chance. Being popular isn't always easy, I guess. But you know, Kevin, you haven't changed either. Oh, was she implying that I was still weak and uneducated? I waited nervously for her to continue. Are you imagining something negative? I meant that you're still the considerate and kind person you've always been, especially to your friends. I was relieved to realize it was a compliment, though it made me a little embarrassed too. You don't have to praise me so much. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm just telling the truth, she said, but I noticed her face seemed a bit flushed. Maybe it was the alcohol, or perhaps it was the situation. I knew I should probably reciprocate with some compliments of my own, but I wasn't used to this kind of atmosphere. So I could only think of something lighthearted to say. Well, don't expect too much from flattery. The best I can offer is a free ramen topping coupon. That would be amazing, she laughed, and we chatted as we walked, but then my phone rang. It's James, I said. Maybe he called you by mistake. It's weird for him to call after telling you to leave, she said with a disgusted face just at the sight of James's name. However, I had a good idea why he was calling. I answered the phone, and James's trembling voice came through. Kevin, please come back. What? I'm already at the station. I'll pay for your taxi. Just come back. But you told me to leave. Yeah, but the restaurant is saying that if you're not here, the bill is $5,000. Emma could hear everything through the phone. At first, she looked shocked, but after a moment, it seemed like she understood. So that place is yours too, right? She asked. Yes, I'm the owner of that restaurant, I said. I had arranged for a special rate of $100 per person, but since I wasn't there, the regular price of $500 per person applied. With 10 people there, the total would be $5,000. Everyone had been told they only needed to pay $100 each, so the remaining $4,100 would fall on James. Come on, James. $4,100 shouldn't be a problem for you, right? What are you talking about? You reserved it for $100 per person. When I explained that I was the owner, the noise on the other end of the line grew louder. That's a scam. Well, you were the one who told me to leave, James. I even asked if you were sure, but you just walked away. I was going to explain, but you didn't give me the chance. Wait a minute. There's no way a high school dropout like you could be the owner of this place. Are you in the restaurant conspiring to mess with me? Sorry to disappoint you, but it's true, I said. After making Mitchell Ramen the top ramen shop in the district, a regular customer who had connections in the U.S. restaurant industry helped me expand internationally. Back when my dad was around, he used to joke that if the restaurant ever became successful, we might expand to the U.S. someday. But with the support we received, it started to seem like a real possibility. I opened the restaurant in the U.S. and spent countless hours with the local staff perfecting our ramen. I worked tirelessly to preserve the authentic Japanese flavor while also making it appealing to the local palate. Thanks to those efforts, the first store in the U.S. became a success. Then came the second, the third. We kept expanding. At the same time, my brothers played a big role in expanding our operations in the U.S. They studied business and logistics, all with the goal of growing Mitchell Ramen together as a family. Now we've expanded beyond ramen shops and launched a chain of restaurants based on Mitchell Ramen. This year, we finally made it onto the revenue rankings in the restaurant industry. After explaining all this, I decided to take pity on James and head back to the restaurant with Emma. The last time we met, I was just using one of my restaurants for a business meeting. I didn't want to brag or make anyone feel bad, so I didn't mention it. When we returned to the reception area, we found James looking pale. He was furious that I hadn't informed him about my connection to the restaurant. My other classmates were clearly fed up with his behavior. This is unfair. You set me up. The moment James saw me, he stepped forward and grabbed my collar, shouting in anger. Just then, a middle-aged man passing by spoke up. Well, if it isn't James. What? Oh, Mr. Keller, what's going on here? Why are you raising your voice? When Mr. Keller saw me, he broke into a warm smile and extended his hand for a handshake. Kevin, it's been a while. How have you been? Likewise, Mr. Keller. Thank you for dining with us today. Of course. Every time we have a meal here, the business negotiations go smoothly. It's almost like a good luck charm. He laughed heartily, then turned back to James. As James had mentioned earlier, Mr. Keller was indeed the CEO of the company James worked for. I had known Mr. Keller personally for a while, and he had always been supportive. He was a kind, respectable man I secretly admired and aspired to be like someday. So you know James here? Yes, we were high school classmates. I see. Mr. Keller noticed the $5,000 invoice on the counter in front of James. James, did you really splurge that much? I mean, the food here is exceptional, but... Mr. Keller, this guy's a scammer. Don't let him fool you. James's outburst only made things more complicated. It was best if he didn't say too much. But now it seemed like what could have been a private resolution between the two of us had escalated, all because James couldn't keep his mouth shut. He was more drunk than when I saw him earlier, and he didn't realize that he was putting himself at a disadvantage. Seeing Mr. Keller's confusion, I had no choice but to explain the situation. After I finished, his expression changed to one of stern disapproval, and he scolded James. I can't believe you'd do something so disgraceful. I never knew you were like this. His words seemed to sober James up a bit, and James quickly shook his head in denial. No, no, it's not like that. I was just a bit drunk, and it was supposed to be all in good fun. You know, you can't trust someone who gets that drunk with client meetings or sales. Who knows what they might do? You're not a student anymore, James. You need to show some maturity. Mr. Keller sighed deeply and then seemed to remember that his party was waiting for him in the room. He bowed deeply to me. I sincerely apologize for this incident. I'll make sure to visit and formally apologize later. There's no need for that. This was a personal matter between James and me. Even so, I can't overlook it. When I come by, I'll also explain how we've dealt with his behavior. With that, Mr. Keller left, and all that remained was a stunned James, watching Mr. Keller's retreating figure and a group of classmates wearing uncomfortable expressions. Later, I heard that James, who had been working in the sales department as the face of the company, was reassigned to a different department due to concerns about his interpersonal skills. He was expected to start over and learn what it meant to be a professional from the ground up. After that, James apparently stopped showing his face around our old classmates and finally gave up on bothering Emma. Around the same time I heard this news, Emma confessed her feelings to me. I thought I had to get James to give up, otherwise he would just keep causing trouble for you, Kevin, she told me. I'd actually liked you since high school and have been looking out for both you and your family. Since high school? Really? You didn't notice? I asked. I wouldn't have kept visiting your shop all these years if I didn't care about you. She seemed a bit exasperated by my obliviousness, but apparently that was something she found endearing. I like that you stay humble and genuine no matter what anyone says, whether it's with me, with James, or with your customers. But you know, I'd be really happy if you started treating me a little more specially from now on. How could I not be thrilled by that? When I told my mom and brothers about it, they threw their hands up in celebration. Emma, who now works in PR for a confectionery company, mentioned that she wants to use her skills to help boost my business even more. She's currently learning all she can about promoting food and beverages with plans to apply that knowledge to our business. For someone who cares so much about my shop, I know I need to give it my all too. This life has taught me the importance of the connections we make with others. Whether it was keeping the shop going with just my mom, making it famous, expanding to the U.S. and beyond, or the belief that our business will continue to grow even more in the future, the key is sincerity in relationships and work. The results will follow. I plan to continue moving forward without arrogance, cherishing the people around me,